everyone, welcome. This week we will talk about beyond language topic as our third topic of our course. So let's start with our references first, which is what is MOOC and what is edX. MOOC is a massive open online course platform that you can find any type of course inside, and edX is one of those courses. In general, edX is a non-profit MOOC provider founded by Harvard and MIT. It offers free online courses from top schools and institutions with optional paid certificates. So if you wanna look at it, if you're curious about these topics, you can find it on edX and MOOC. So first, before I start our topic, I have a question for you. For you, what is the role of non-linguistic features of talk like eye gaze, gesture, or even posture, accessories, and clothing in classroom interaction? So I'm waiting for your answers. Thank you. And let's start with our first topic, introducing contextualization resources. First, contextualization cues. This is all nonverbal signals, like we said in the first slide, accessories, clothing, maybe gestures, mimics, eye gaze, and etc. All nonverbal signals are called contextualization cues. And we have an example here. For example, the teacher notices Max's engaged eye gaze even though his hand isn't raised. So this is an example for it. As a second type, we have combinations. Combinations are how multiple cues together create meaning about identity and participation. Again, we have an example like Max's hoodie, backwards cap, messy hair, plus lack of hand raising present him as an introverted, non-typical, and overachiever person. So, a teacher can easily understand a student's identity by looking at these signals. And as a third, we have context, which is the classroom is full of well-groomed, enthusiastic students raising hands, but Max could easily be overlooked. So a teacher should be careful about it, like we have talked about in our previous weeks a lot. And as the fourth type, we have consequences. They are we have an example. It's like I can explain it through an example, like the teacher's ability to notice and call on Max boosts his confidence and can influence his academic performance and long term. Like we said, it is important, so a teacher should be careful about it and notice the student and make him participate to the class. And this, at the end, this gave the student, like Max, in confidence. So, as our second topic, we have John Gamper's and his water theory. What is this water theory? David Foster Wallace's This is Water proverb introduces the idea that humans often fail to notice the invisible structures that shape our daily interactions. Just as fish don't consciously notice water, probably rarely notice the contextualization cues like nonverbal features such as eye gaze, posture, intonation, and wait time, and that supports and shape communication. Like we said, in the sea, the fish aren't aware of the water they are inside, but when they move to another place, they can realize that. So this is actually similar to the people environment. So this is basically it is. And as a Gumper's second thing we will talk about is Gumper's cross-cultural findings. Subtle differences in intonation cause British listeners to misinterpret polite corrections as rude criticism. So, if you remember from our first videos, it kind of similar to the intelligibility, because in different cultures people have different accents, and it is similar to do like these nonverbal signals. So. These misunderstandings can lead people to attribute negative stereotypes to entire groups, an example of unintentional cue-based racism. A perfect student may seem that way partly because of contextualization cues like how they sit, speak, gesture, make eye contact, or organize their speech. Like we said, these things are vary from different culture to cultures. And connecting back to the This is Water analogy, Teachers are encouraged to recognize the invisible contextual cues that shape their impressions of students and classroom dynamics, rather than relying on unnoticed default assumptions. So, as our next topic, we will talk about contextualization cues also vary and what a teacher should do. Contextualization cues also vary, like across demographic groups or language backgrounds, creating recognizable varieties like Indian English, African American English, British versus American English, and they also can vary across situations, forming different registers like formal versus informal, and across cultural norms where behaviors can be misread. So, in this kind of situation, what a teacher should do, a teacher should become aware of their own contextualization cues. They should recognize systematic patterns across register and social varieties in their classroom. They should observe how students from different backgrounds signal participation. And as a last one, they should even ask students about the cues they use. So this is how a teacher can solve this kind of problem in a classroom. As our next topic, we have combinations of contextual cues. Students work in combinations with other these kind of contextual cues work in combinations with other nonverbal features such as appearance, clothing, technology use, and even race to shape how language is understood in classrooms. So, Lu and Johnson, sorry. So, Luann Johnson shows how teachers intentionally use combinations. She adjusts not only her tone and posture but also her clothing to shape student behavior. For example, informal clothes encourage creativity and spontaneity, while a suit as a formal cloth can give signals authority and limits spontaneity. So, it basically say that like nonverbal communication, like nonverbal signals, also clothing and appearance is also same important as these contextual cues, and a teacher can give a signal of what type of communication he or she wants during a classroom with their clothes. So, communicative competence. Himes argued that being competent in a language is more than grammar. It is knowing how to speak appropriately in a specific cultural context and which cues and combinations work in which speech events. So, different cultures socialize children into different norms, like white middle class parents often use baby talk, and Samoan and Papua New Guinea parents do not, yet their children learn language fully. So, these differences show that cues we think as a universal are actually culturally specific. Language socialization. Children learn how to use language not by explicit instruction but by participating in daily interactions over years. This is why cues feel natural or normal even though they vary across communities. A downward gaze, like yes ma'am or certain forms of politeness, may be appropriate at home but misunderstood at school. So, and as our next topic, we have indexicality. Cues point to social meanings like identity, loyalty, politeness. We are talking about it. And same cue can mean very different thing in different contexts. For example, a hand sign can index friendship in a neighborhood, but gang affiliation at school. So, like we said, cues can vary different context to context, different culture to culture, and applying this to the classroom. How can we apply all these things into classroom? The classroom contains many overlapping cultural worlds. Students and teachers may have mismatched expectations about eye contact, tone, responses, or participation. And misunderstandings can silence students and shape their academic identity long term. So, to understand these interactions, teachers should identify hotspots, like moments where expected sequences break down, unexpected responses, unusual intonation, gaze, or timing, and times when someone's behavior doesn't fit the teacher assumptions. And again, as one of Gamper's theories, Gamper's advice for handling misunderstandings. We have 6 key strategies to this. The first one is state your assumptions, think about your assumptions, be explicit, talk about discrimination, listen to the end, and give extra time. These are the crucial points that a teacher should be careful during a classroom interaction and classroom communication. And during this process, why can recording transcribing help? And so transcript make invisible cues visible, like they allow teachers to notice the exact point where expectations failed. They create opportunities for students and teachers to discuss misunderstandings openly, and this helps students understand the consequences of their linguistic choices. So during this process, a teacher can use transcripts, and this makes things to see easy. And yes, this was our topic for this week. Thank you for listening. This is my bibliography. I used, like we said in the first, I used MOOC and edX, and I prepared my slide through Canva. So thank you for listening to me. See you.